Good morning, everybody. This is Free the Trade. I am DK305007 and coming to you live here. We are going to be looking at the markets today, going over some interesting news that happened over the weekend, and do a deep dive into some of the tickers, equities, and things like that we'll be trading in the upcoming days. Stay tuned. All right, if you're just joining us here, we have a look at the Fear and Greed Index for today. We are sitting at 62 on the Fear and Greed Index. That's been a major shift upwards, which is what we love to see. Part of this is due to the U.S.-China trade deals that we saw being negotiated over the weekend. They did go into effect. I think it was like a 110% decrease from the 145% tariffs that were there. The market is open. Overnight, we saw futures. Overnight, we saw the futures reacting to this. They were up, I think, almost 5% at one point. We also saw some of the overnight market prices on things like Robinhood and Webull jump to about 582, which kind of gives us a good indication of what they could hit today during the open market and live trading. So definitely something to consider and to be aware of for sure. But yeah, things are looking really exciting here. I do want to make sure that everyone can hear us properly. If the music's too loud, things like that, we did have a couple of changes to the setup, so would love to hear your feedback on that. We can adjust and make it better for everyone involved. So feel free to jump in the chat or in the Discord too if you're there. Now, something that we haven't really done in the past, but we will be doing going forward, is the voice chat on the Discord. I'm sorry. We'll also be going live there. So that is another resource that we'll be utilizing going forward on some of these streams. So definitely love to have you guys join there as well, or even just join in on the voice if you can't tune in to the video. I know that some people do it on their morning drive to work, so that is another option there for you. All right, getting that out of the way, let's take a look here at Robinhood. Let's see. Let me see here. Actually, I have another chart pulled up here. Let me do this and share this instead. All right. Music is a nice touch. Good volume. Thank you much for that feedback. We appreciate that. We generally have live stream music on these. I know that's not something in the other server that we were using. That was mainly because there were so many voices and such, and music just kind of added to chaos rather than helping things out. So that is the reason. That is the reason there, at least. All right, now jumping into the market here. All right. Okay. Obviously, market has just opened 4 minutes ago. We are already up to 579 and running here. Let's see if we can take a look at the 1 minute. So yeah, already we gapped up. Looks like we did have a slight drop though at the initial. We gapped up to 581.73 at open. Open price was 581.48. A little bit of a bounce, and now we are on a little bit of a decline. I imagine this is going to be a lot of profit taking. Since this data and since the trade news and things that came overnight is still new, the market has not really had a time to react to it. And so while we're watching this, the first probably 15 minutes is going to be really, really, really crucial to getting up-to-date market data to kind of predict how the market's going to adjust going forward. Do you think the Walmart call is a longer hold, or are you selling soon? Let me actually take a look at that. Bear with me just 1 second here. Alrighty. So looking at my Walmart calls here, Walmart actually didn't jump as much as you would expect, based on how they are directly impacted by those tariffs. In fact, my Walmart call is actually dropping a little bit. Let me take a look at the expiration date. To be honest, I think I'm actually going to close it because I think there's a better entry later on down the road, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. Yeah, we'll get out of that one. I am going to take a look at some other things. Looks like the market's dipping pretty heavily right now on Walmart. All right, I'm up 300% on some of my SPY calls. I'm actually going to take profit on that real quick as well. 3.4. Do 3.3. Okay. Alrighty. Already up almost $300 for the day and haven't even placed a trade. So that's always fun. Okay, so let's jump straight into the Walmart question first. Okay, Walmart. Alright, here we have Walmart. Let's take a look at what we were going for here. Alright, we have a swing low from, a swing high over here. Basically what this means is, let me grab my drawing tools. Alright, so we have this high position over here on the daily charts. So Walmart has taken quite a bit of a dip. Here's a swing low position over here. So I'm actually going to mark that as well. Boom. Okay. So here's kind of what we were expecting with this Walmart bounce. We're expecting a return back down to this level. In particular, this area right here. Let me remove that. No. There we go. Where is my quick tools? They're not showing up here. Alright, we're going to be looking for them then. Here we go. Okay. So, particularly this level right here. So, this right here is a demand zone. That means where the price is right now, it's on a downward trend. This is the level of demand where the buyers are. So once it hits this level again, wherever that may be, probably somewhere out here, this is where it's going to have another bounce with another test towards this high right here. And so initially we were trying to enter here on a longer calls, take advantage of this. We entered here to take another advantage. This is another swing swing low. What this means is the price came down, it hit those EMAs, in this case the 50 EMA. It's another demand zone here. So I'm going to mark that as well. Alright. And so we entered somewhere down here. Generally what we'll see is a push up, a return back to this level. At this level, there's two possibilities. Either the buyers buy in and it skyrockets again and tests this higher level, or alternatively, it could potentially push through here, bounce off of this demand zone, or if we go further out, it could push back down here. But the likelihood of that doing this is very slim, and here's why. Number one, we're above all of the different EMAs. We're above the 9, 21, 50, and 200 EMA, which is a bullish configuration, a longer term bullish configuration. This is a standard wave. We did have a high up here. Probably should have closed more around this level, but it didn't. That's okay. We did close for a profit, which is fine. My next level to enter this, to re-enter this play would be back around this level somewhere. So I would probably say around a 93 or 94 level is a better entry. If it returns to this level, which if you look on our MACD, it is in a declining state, heading back towards that zero. It's losing momentum here. And generally what we're going to see is this kind of action here. So something like this right here, where it bounces into it. It may go all the way to the bottom, may go a little under, but it's going to hit here, and it's going to come back out. If it crosses through any of these, it may have an area of resistance, make a higher low, and then at that point, it's going to rocket up and try to make an attempt to this level here. And so if we want to profit from that, we would wait, let it bounce through. As it comes out of this area, that would be our entry point. So somewhere about, let me see. So somewhere probably like right here. As it's bouncing out. So that's our entry point. And then our price target or profit target is going to be right here. We do have another level here. This is the previous high. This could be a potential take profit zone. You could take, like, if you did 2 contracts, you could do like sell 1 contract here and then ride the other one up to this level and sell there. Just depends. I do think the Walmart call is still good. It was out to the 23rd of May. I think it's good. I think it would need to be rolled out a little bit though. And so probably a re-entry would be somewhere around this date, which looks to be around like the 21st, 22nd of May. If you're looking down here. And this, once again, this is on the daily chart. If you want to get a closer look into it, you could go down to like say the 4 hour, where you can see we're already entering this sell-off cycle, which is kind of why I closed it too. Because this is our last point before we really start dipping into this demand zone. So yeah. That's kind of my take on the Walmart call. Still great play, just not the right entry right this second. So if you had entered earlier when we entered, you'd be good. If you haven't entered yet or you're considering entering, I would say don't, because there's a better entry coming. You take that entry and then you'll be set up for a better play. All right, let's jump into something else. Someone had mentioned Tesla yesterday in the chat, so let's actually take a look at that one here. First of all, let's take a look at the overall trend. Here's the daily. It is in a downturn right now. We have seen the EMAs start to level out, which is a good sign. That means that the momentum is shifting. These are a lagging indicator, but you can see how we've had this pretty directional downwards trend, and then we get to this level here, and it starts to kind of trade sideways. At this point, we can almost assume that we found the bottom. What I love about this, looks like we're at the sideways area, so we have potential for a move up. We've actually even started to have a slight move up. What I don't like about this is these areas here. Let's see. Yeah. We haven't crossed. We're literally right at the break even on the momentum indicator. So this 0 line, this dashed line in the middle, is telling us that we're like right there at break even. So I would love to see this go into positive momentum before entering. However, you could technically enter a longer position on this and probably be okay. Let's see, RSI.
That's TSL. That's not Tesla.
Okay, actually appreciate that. Thank you.
Sorry.
There we go. Tesla. And I think, is TSL a appreciate you jumping in on that.
I think it's a 2x inverse.
Is it inverse?
I think so. I could be wrong. Let me check.
Because I know TSLL is the bull 2 times. I actually don't know. But I appreciate you that. Thank you. All right, so anyways, TSLA. Similar setup here. But once again, on this, we have had that directional decrease, and now we are sideways, setting up for what looks to be a potential run. If we were to go into detail on this, let's see. We have a swing here at this level down here. We have another swing here, which is actually at the same level, and then we hit it again. I don't like that. Here's why. I mean, it's a strong demand zone, but we've hit it a couple times, and we haven't really had a lot of strong momentum and strong volume off of it. If you look at the size of the candles, momentum is increasing down here, but if you look at the size of the candles and such, the moves are not as big as they were. And while that's to be expected, you know, the whole elevator down and stair steps back up, it is something to consider. You want to wait until you have strong directional movement and then kind of hop in, ride it till you start losing that momentum and that volume, and then hop out for the safest and most high probability trade. So if we were to map this one out here, we'll do it quickly. We could take this area right here as a strong demand zone, and we are moving around through it, stayed with it, we're respecting it pretty strongly. This is a decent move out of it, but we returned right back to it. It's another pretty decent move out of it, but this one we have crossed over these EMAs. That gives us a little bit of a more bullish outlook. I would like to see this stay above the 200 EMA. I know that we had a gap up here probably because of the tariffs and such overnight. But this right here is actually a bearish candle. I would love to see this be a stronger entry point, so I would probably kind of wait on this. I know the person who asked about Tesla was interested in they were asking for a friend who had some shares. So if you have shares, I think you'll be okay for now. I would continue to monitor the position and just see if it continues to go up and how it respects this demand zone. If it continues to respect the demand zone, you'll be okay. If not, I would consider liquidating that position and then you know, moving it to something that could be more profitable for you over time. For growth stocks, that could be Nvidia, that could be, you know, something else, whatever. Honestly, whatever you like or feel confident, I would recommend doing that. Alrighty, back to the markets here. Okay, here we are here. We're starting to see a bit of a directional trend on the markets, which I'm actually liking. This is on the longer timeline. We're using the day. Generally, whenever we're looking at charts, we want to use a higher time frame like the 4 hours or the day charts in order to determine a directional trend. And we can use an extended line here to kind of map out areas of common bounces and such. So like for instance here we have a strong swing low. We have another swing low. It goes through the trend line, but it does kind of respect it somewhat. And that would be right here. Then we have another one here, another bounce here, and another bounce here. So this is I would rate this one probably like a 2 out of 3 if I was to give this trend a rating, but it is directional and it is up, so that's decent. We have also broken through our different EMAs. 250, 21, and 10, I believe, is what we're using here. 10, 21, 50, and 200, yes. Oops, not what I meant to do here. Okay. All right. And so this is good. It's bullish. It's directional. We are heading pretty high. I don't know what this exact number is though. 63, 69 on the RSI. Remember, our 70 level is our overbought zone. So we are reaching a period where we'll probably correct soon. Part of that is due to the gap up. So as we've seen in the 1 minute intervals and such, this is probably a correction because we jumped up too high. I mean, that's a big jump. See, we were at 564. That's almost a 20-point jump. That's insane. So yeah, so this is kind of expected here because these levels are indicating overbought. So what we'll see is this kind of decline. Looks like it's not going to decline too much. It's already respecting the 9 EMA or 10 EMA. And is continuing up, or at least sideways for now. Not too much going on these other indicators. This TTM squeeze, if you've not used it, I love these so much. These will indicate if if a stock price is squeezing. Basically, a squeeze means it's operating within a channel of a high and a low, and it just bounces back and forth between that. Generally, it indicates a positive breakout soon coming. On this right here, you can kind of take a high-level view, watch the lines, and when you see a purple area marked, it indicates a period where it's squeezing, and it's actually fairly decent. So right here, say, squeezed. This was a short squeeze, a really, really short one. It bounced up against this 50 EMA. We recognize that as a dynamic resistance level. And when it jumped hard and jumped quickly over the next 4 days. So I like using this, but I generally look for a longer time frame squeeze, or if I find one like that, I can go down to a lower time frame, such as like a 30 minute. Well, this is a 1 minute. Thought I was on a higher time frame. Okay, let's take a look at this one over here. So this one here is a 2-day squeeze. Looks like it didn't actually go through with anything. I'm gonna find a better example here. I know Nvidia recently had a decent squeeze, so let's take a look at this one. Let's see, 4 hours. Where were we on this? Oh yeah, we're actually, well, tariffs brought us out of that one. Here's another example here. We started to squeeze, stayed within the squeeze confines here. Whenever we finally left that squeeze area, once again, it's a strong push, another strong push. At this point, though, we do have the falling volume, and so we would probably take profit there. There was a really good example of a squeeze I saw the other day. I think it might have been XYZ. Yes, here it is. Okay. Right here. This is the squeeze. This is the one. All right. Take a look at this. Like, this is like perfect. Okay. Something about right here. Trend lines don't have to be perfect. Okay. So what's really interesting about this squeeze, you just notice how it's respecting this bottom area pretty strongly. What's really neat is if you go up to like a higher time frame here. Where did my charts go? Let's go back down. Have that setting turned off. That's unfortunate. Okay. I was going to show you a really interesting trick you can do with this TTM squeeze indicator here. Okay, that's not working right now. My chart has a setting where it doesn't copy the indicators across the different time frames. I need to find that setting and fix that. But basically, if you take a look at this on a higher time frame, you'll see this bottom area acting as a support level. When the price meets this bottom level and a strong indicator, when either of these channels meet an indicator and bounce at a confluence of let's say an EMA and this trend line, what you'll have is, boom, a strong rocket, a strong upwards movement. And this is true on almost all of your squeezes. So if you find a squeeze or you see a squeeze, especially if you're using the TTM squeeze indicator, draw your trend lines out, and you can figure out where the launch is going to be based on where your trend lines intersect the EMAs. So in this case, this intersected the 21 and the 10 right here. That was our launch. Boom. And that happens on, I don't know the exact percentage, but a lot of them, I promise you that. You find a strong, good squeeze, and it's going to launch it's called confluence, where multiple indicators indicate the same thing. And what we have here is a golden cross confluence, and that's where the launch occurs. Talking about XYZ though, I actually made a post about this in the channel the other day. This is a really, really interesting one. on a higher time frame, I'm going to go to 4 hours here. This is what we kind of have. This was the trade plan I drew out, actually. Okay. Basically, when I drew this out, we were somewhere down here, looking at a 15-minute. We indicated there was going to be a sell-off period. And it should follow this kind of trend. It actually looks like we jumped and gapped up on this one, so I think this may be invalidated. But basically what we were looking for is to fill this gap here. We expected after the next sell period for it to bounce up off of this standard trend here, this trend line, launch up. We had a take profit level at this area right here, which is, we zoom out, this is based on this level of support over here. Could also be based on another level of support like right here. But I mean, it looks like if we had entered earlier, I actually haven't been watching this, but the entry would have been sometime overnight or over the weekend since we gapped up. It'll be interesting to watch this one. What I would recommend is to see if it still holds true to this trend line. If it bounces back down and bounces off this trend line, continues the normal growth, or if this gap up is going to reset all of our fundamentals, or I'm sorry, all of our technicals, and we need to watch this and make a new trade plan. But basically, expected to bounce, take profit in the middle, stop loss right underneath that trend line where we enter, and then our take profit was going to be at this level here. It could also be at the top of this box, which is, I believe, was like a 58 level or something like that. Anyways, that's XYZ. This is called a gap fill. We gapped down. I think this was due to an earnings that went bad. After earnings, we've started trending up. That's your opportunity to find an entry point, and then potentially profit off of this gap. Probably the best entry point on this one, looking at it historically, is going to be a confluence of these crossovers of the EMAs. We have the 50, the 9, and the 21 all crossing over at this area. So at the next bounce, you could expect another push up. That would be an entry right there. If you look at the lower time frames, generally you want to enter in a red area on the MACD. So right here, rather than on the green. The green is an area of positive momentum. If you have signs that it's coming out of an area of negative momentum and it's still in the red, you're probably early and you can jump in there. If it's in the green when you enter, you might have a little bit of a late entry, so you might consider jumping out sooner rather than later. I'm going to hop over to the Discord and see if we have any other questions or what's going on here. Trump press conference right now. That's actually really interesting. Let's take a look at what's going on there. Let's pull this up.
At Freddy's, we put a little extra effort into every steak burger we make. The brisket and our new barbecue.
2 hours, actually. And he's going to be released before the eyes of Steve Witkoff, who has done a fantastic job. I just... Do you know what happens? A lot of talent. But I know a lot of people with a lot of talent, but there's one that I thought had a special way about him, special personality. A good deal maker, had a special way about him, and it was Steve. Knew very little about the subject matter, who does? But he learned it in about 2 hours. And he's been fantastic, so I want to just thank Steve. But they're going to be releasing Edon in about 2 hours from now, or sometime today, let's say. And again, they thought he was dead just a short while ago. His parents are so happy. They're so happy. So it's, as you know, Edon's the only American citizen who's captured and held hostage by Hamas since October 7th, 2023. And he's coming home to his parents which is really great news. I mean, to me, it's big news. They thought he was dead. So that's that. So we'll be heading there, and we'll be seeing 3 primary countries. You know all about that: Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar. On Thursday's meeting with Russia and Ukraine is very important. I was very insistent that that meeting take place. I think good things can come out of that meeting. Stop the bloodshed of the horrible. It's a bloodbath. But that 5,000 more, it's really much more, trying to be conservative, more than 5,000 soldiers. Russian, they're not American soldiers, they're from Russia, they're from Ukraine, but they're people. They're human souls, and they're being killed at levels that we haven't seen since the Second World War. And it's every week. A lot of drone fighting. It's a whole new form of warfare, and it's violent and vicious. And so that's it. I'd like to go back to China just for a second. They're very heavy on the fentanyl. We're charging them, as you know, 20% for the fact that they send fentanyl into our country. And they've agreed that they're going to stop that. And, you know, they'll be rewarded by not having to pay, hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. So the fentanyl should stop. It comes from China. It's amazing. And comes through our southern border, comes through our northern border too, comes through Canada, and comes through our southern border, much more through the southern border. But so that's a very important subject to me, because everybody in this room has lost friends or people that have family members that have died of fentanyl. So there's a big incentive for China to stop, and I take them at their word. They're going to work on that, I think, very hard. And one thing, when they work on something, they get it done. So now I'm about to depart on a historic visit. Some of you are going with us to, as I said, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates. Before I do, I'll sign one of the most consequential executive orders in our country's history. I don't think there's ever been anything signed like this, certainly not with respect to health care, nothing even close. I'm delighted to be joined on this occasion by Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is doing a really good job, I have to tell you that. CMS Administrator, a friend of mine, Dr. Mehmet Oz, who is an amazing guy. You know, I was telling Bobby before, Oz had a very successful show, but it hurt his reputation. Because when you're in show business, it hurts your reputation a little bit. It's good for you. It's good for you, but in terms of professionalism and being a doctor, it sort of hurts your reputation. This guy went to the best schools, was the best, top of the line. Then he did a television show, became a success, made a lot of money, all that stuff, but it sort of hurt him. And you know who I compare that to? I hate to say this, but a special woman, Jeanine Pirro. She was the toughest, smartest DA, maybe in our countries, in our cities and states history, New York. She was really tough, really sharp. Then she did a show, and people didn't think of her quite the same way. She became more of an entertainment person, like Oz. Oz is not an entertainer. He's not really an entertainer, if you know the real story. And she isn't either. She is unbelievable. She was one of the strongest district attorneys in the history of New York, highly respected, very tough, went after the drug dealers at a level that you don't see today anymore. And hopefully she's given up she's leaving the number one show on cable television, one of the number one shows on television, period, The Five, but they've got great people left behind, but she was a big part of it. And so I equate it to that. Jeanine Pirro is unbelievable. FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty McCary, with a reputation that's second to none, and the job he's doing already has been fantastic. Thank you, Marty. And Director of National Institute of Health, Jay Bhattacharya, who has been, as you know, from Stanford, so highly regarded, and have all been working with us very hard on this. And the question they would ask, being a little bit new to the government aspect of it, is why doesn't somebody fight the drug price situation, meaning equalization? There's a term, it's called equalization. Nobody wants to mention that term. And I'm not knocking the drug companies. I'm really more knocking the countries than the drug companies, because they're forced to do things. But the drug lobby is the strongest lobby in this country. They say the drug lobby. It's between that and lawyers, and they have a lot of power. But starting today, the United States will no longer subsidize the health care of foreign countries, which is what we were doing. We're subsidizing others' health care. Countries where they paid a small fraction of what for the same drug that what we pay many, many times more for, and will no longer tolerate profiteering and price gouging from Big Pharma. But again, it was really the countries that forced Big Pharma to do things that, frankly, I'm not sure they really felt comfortable doing, but they've gotten away with it, these countries. European Union has been brutal. And the drug companies actually told me stories. It was just brutal how they forced them. And European Union suing all our companies, Apple, Google, Meta. They're suing all of our companies. They end up, they have judges that are European Union-centric, and they get rewarded 15 billion, 17 billion, 20 billion, and they use that to run their operation. Not going to happen any longer, that I can tell you. So what's been happening is we've been subsidizing other countries throughout the world, not just in Europe, throughout the world. European Union was the most difficult from what I understand. I mean, I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine who's a businessman, very, very, very top guy. Most of you would have heard of him. A highly neurotic, brilliant businessman, seriously overweight, and he takes the fat shot drug. And he called me up, and he said, President, he calls me, he used to call me Donald, now he calls me President, so that's nice respect. But he's a rough guy, smart guy, very successful, very rich. I wouldn't even know how we would know this, but because he's got comments. President, could I ask you a question? What? I'm in London, and I just paid for this damn fat drug I take. I said, it's not working. He said, I just paid $88, and in New York I pay $1,300. What the hell is going on? He said, so I checked, and it's the same box, made in the same plant, by the same company. It's the identical pill that I buy in New York, and here I'm paying $88 in London. In New York, I'm paying $1,300. Now, this is a great businessman, but he's not familiar with this crazy situation that we have. But he was stunned. But it was just one of those stories. And I brought it up with the drug companies, represented by somebody who's very, very smart, good person too. And we argued about it for about half hour, and then finally he just said, because they can't justify it, he just said, look, you got me. I can no longer they've been justifying this crap for years. They said, oh, it's research and development. Well, I said, well, research and development, other countries should pay research and development too. It's for their benefit. It was just one of those things. And the other countries would set a price, and they'd meet the price, and they'd say, if you don't meet the price, you can't sell it in our country. I said, well, then you walk away, and, they'll call you back, and they'll sell it in the country. But now they'll have to do that. So for the first time in many years, we'll slash the cost of prescription drugs, and we will bring fairness to America. Drug prices will come down by much more, really, if you think. 59, if you think of a drug that is sometimes 10 times more expensive, it's much more than the 59%. It depends on the way you want to analyze it, but in one way you could analyze it that way. But between 59 and 80, and I guess even 90%. So when I worked so hard in the first term, and if I got prices down, remember I was the only one to ever get prices down for a full year, but I'd get them down like 2%, and I thought it was like a big deal. Well, we're getting them down 60, 70, 80, 90%, but actually more than that if you think about it in the way mathematically. And Pharma has to say, we're sorry, but we'll not be able to do this any longer to these countries that have been so tough. They've been very tough, nasty. It's trade. And Pharma is also very powerful. and the Democrats have protected pharma. The Democrats, this is the Democrats have protected pharma. These are the Democrats. And by the way, I just called the Speaker of the House, and I just called the leader, our leader in the Senate, John Thune, Mike Johnson. Spoke to both of them. I said, when you score, you're going to have to score two things. You're going to have to, number one, score that hundreds of billions of dollars of tariff money is coming in. But even bigger than that, you're going to have to score that your cost for Medicaid and Medicare and just basically pharmaceuticals and drugs is going down at a level that nobody has ever seen before. It'll pay for the Golden Dome. I see the Golden Dome is there, see? That'll easily pay for the Golden Dome. And we'll have a lot of money left over. We need the Golden Dome, by the way, in this world. Although this world's a lot safer today than it was a week ago. And a lot safer than it was 6 months ago. We had people that had no clue what they were doing. So today Americans spend 70% more for prescription drugs than we spent in the year 2000. Think of that. Our country has the highest drug prices anywhere in the world by sometimes a factor of 5, 6, 7, 8 times. It's not like they're slightly higher. They're 6, 7, 8 times. There are even cases of 10 times higher. So that you go 10 times more expensive for the same drug, that's big numbers. Even though the United States is home to only 4% of the world's population, pharmaceutical companies make more than 2/3 of their profits in America. So think of that. With 4% of the population, the pharmaceutical companies make most of their money, most of their profits from America. That's not a good thing. Now, I think, by the way, I have great respect for these companies and for the people that run them. I really do. And I think they did one of the greatest jobs in history for their company, convincing people for many years that this was a fair system. Nobody really understood why, but I figured it out. For years, pharmaceutical and drug companies have said that research and development costs were what they are, and for no reason whatsoever. They had to be borne by America alone. Not anymore, they don't. This means American patients were effectively subsidizing socialist healthcare systems in Germany, in all parts of the European Union. They were the toughest of all. They were nasty. And I see that. I see that with trade, too. European Union is in many ways nastier than China. Okay? And we've just started with them. Oh, they'll come down a lot. You watch. We have all the cards. They treated us very unfairly. They sell us 13 million cars. We sell them none. They sell us their agricultural products. We sell them virtually none. They don't take our products. That gives us all the cards, and very unfair. So they're going to have to pay more for health care, and we're going to have to pay less. That's all it is. And believe it or not, because it's really the world we're talking about, not just the European Union, but because it's the world, the numbers are for the healthcare company not as bad as you would think. They'll make the same. I think the healthcare companies should make pretty much the same money. I really don't believe they should be affected very much, because it's just a redistribution of wealth. It's a redistribution where it could be the same top line, but it's going to be distributed differently. Europe's going to have to pay a little bit more. The rest of the world's going to have to pay a little bit more, and America's going to pay a lot less. Again, because it's a much smaller population than when you think of the whole world.
Also on that, I saw someone mention that health insurance companies are probably not going to reduce their premiums, so they'll be receiving more money and actually paying less out for covering prescriptions and things like that. So that's also another interesting thing to consider.
So basically what we're doing is equalizing. There's a new word that I came up with, which I think is probably the best word. We're going to equalize. We're all going to pay the same. We're going to pay what Europe's going to pay. We're going to all pay. Now, there may be some countries in dire need, and I would be willing to sacrifice that and help them. But it's called Most Favored Nation. We are going to pay the lowest price there is in the world. We will get whoever is paying the lowest price That's the price that we're going to get. So remember that. So we're no longer paying 10 times more than another country. Whoever is paying the lowest price, we will look at that price and we will say that's the price we're going to pay. Most favored nations. That's what it is. One breast cancer drug costs Americans over $16,000 per bottle, but the same drug from the same factory, manufactured by the same company, is 1/6 that price in Australia and 1/10 that price in Sweden. 1/10 for the identical product. A common asthma drug costs almost $500 here in America, but costs less than $40 in the United Kingdom. So $40 in the United Kingdom, which is where this gentleman told me he paid a small amount for his shot. But think of that. So $40 versus $500 here. That's not even bad. There are much worse examples. And the weight loss drug, Ozempic, costs 10 times more in the United States than in the rest of the developed world. 10 times more. Why? Why? What did we do? Suckers. But we never had a president that had the courage to do this. And nobody knew the system like I do. I mean, I've gotten to know this system so well. And I don't think it's fair that it benefits Obamacare. Obamacare is a failure. It's not a good health care. It works. I made it work. I had an obligation to make it work, or an obligation to let it die. I chose that we had to make it work. I had to make it as good as possible. And I had a choice. I could have let it fail or make it as good as possible. As good as possible means it was still not very good, but it survived. And we did the right thing. But this makes everything work. And I don't want to have a bad form of healthcare work because of the fact I was able to cut drug prices by 80 or 90%. So we're going to maybe come up with something. I think this gives the Republicans a chance to actually do a healthcare that's much better than Obamacare and for less money, which if you guys would work on that along with Congress. But I do want to say that Democrats could have done this a long time ago. They have fought like hell for the drug companies, and they knew they were doing the wrong thing. And it's going to be very hard. I was just telling the leader and the speaker that it's going to be very hard for the Democrats to vote against the one big, beautiful deal. The greatest tax cuts in history, greatest everything, but now you have the big drug prices because that's going to be included. It makes that whole situation different from a scoring standpoint. I just told them, I called them up about this. I said, I'm going to do something that's going to be very monumental, and you're going to be scoring. You better tell your people that this is going to score really well. And then add hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs to your list also. But as big as the tariffs are, this is something that really hits quickly. 5 years ago, I signed an executive order to confront this disaster, but only confront it in a minor way. It was a good confrontation, but never to this extent. And it took people a little while to understand a very complicated system. But Joe Biden, without any knowledge of what he was doing, terminated the policy and then pretended to negotiate under a new system. And then you take a look, 5 out of the 10 drugs that he negotiated are now over 200% more expensive in America than the rest of the world, and far more expensive than when he even got involved. Much more expensive than when he got involved. Joe Biden's plan was as you know, because you wrote about it, you don't say it very loudly, but it was a very big failure, was his whole presidency. First, I'm directing the U.S. Trade Representatives and Department of Commerce to begin investigations into foreign nations that extort drug companies by blocking their products unless they accept bottom line and very low dollar amounts for their product, unfairly shifting the cost burden onto American patients. And we'll be taking a look at that very strongly. The biggest thing we're going to do is we're going to tell those countries, like those represented by the European Union, that, that game is up, sorry. And if they want to get cute, then they don't have to sell cars into the United States anymore. It's a very big subject. And they won't get cute, because I'll defend the drug companies from that standpoint. They were given a price by the European unions and other countries. This is what you do. This is what we're going to pay. We're not going to pay any more. Let America pay the difference because there was a big shortfall. Let America pay it. And that's what we did, but we're not doing it anymore. Next, my administration will secure what we're calling most favored nations drug pricing. The principle is simple. Whatever the lowest price paid for a drug in other developed countries, that is the price that Americans will pay. And we're using the term other developed countries because there are some countries that need some additional help, and that's fine. I think that's very good. Some prescription drug and pharmaceutical prices will be reduced almost immediately by 50 to 80 to 90%. Big Pharma will either abide by this principle voluntarily or will use the power of the federal government to ensure that we are paying the same price as other countries. To accelerate these price restrictions and reductions, my administration will also cut out the middlemen. We're going to totally cut out the famous middlemen. Nobody knows who they are, middlemen. I've been hearing the term for 25 years, middlemen. I don't know who they are, but they're rich. That I can tell you. We're going to cut out the middlemen and facilitate the direct sale of drugs at the most favored nation price directly to the American citizen. So we're cutting out, Bobby, the middlemen. It's so important, right? You got to do that. They're worse than the drug companies. They don't even make a product, and they make a fortune. It's very smart business people, that I can tell you. If companies make no significant progress toward most favored nation pricing, which we will insist that they do, so I think I'm wasting time talking about it. We're going to insist upon it. And we'll insist, and we're going to help the drug companies with the other nations, because those other nations do a lot of trading with us. They need our trade, just like China needed us very badly. They need us just as badly. We will do whatever we have to with trade, just like we did some great things with trade with India and Pakistan. It really helped the situation, very heated situation. Could have lost millions of people, more than millions, I mean, many millions of people. And they want to do business with America, but we never used our powers that way. We never knew how. We never had people that knew how to do that. We'll also open up America's market to safe and legal imports of affordable drugs from other countries, putting dramatic downward pressure on prices. And if necessary, we'll investigate the drug companies, and we'll, in particular, investigate the countries that are doing this, and we will add it onto the price that we charge them for doing business in America. In other words, we'll add it onto tariffs if they don't do what is right, which is everybody should equalize, everybody should say, pay the same price. And special interests may not like this very much, but the American people will. I am doing this for the American people. I'm doing this against the most powerful lobby in the world, probably the drug lobby, drug and pharmaceutical lobby. But it's one of the most important orders, I think, that's ever been signed, certainly with regard to health care or health in the history of our country, and it's an honor to be a part of it. And I'd like to ask Robert F. Kennedy to say a few words, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an extraordinary day. This is an issue that, I grew up in the Democratic Party, and every major Democratic leader for 20 years has been making this promise to the American people. This was the fulcrum of Bernie Sanders' runs for presidency, that he was going to eliminate this discrepancy between Europe and the United States. But as it turns out, none of them were doing it. It's one of these promises that politicians make to their constituents, knowing that they'll never have to do it. And the reason they'll never have to do it is because they know that Congress is controlled in so many ways by the pharmaceutical industry. There's at least one pharmaceutical lobbyist for every congressman, every senator on Capitol Hill, and every member of the Supreme Court. By some estimates, 3. Pharmaceutical companies, the industry itself, spends 3 times what the next largest lobbyist spends on lobbying. So this was an issue that people talked about, but nobody wanted to do anything because it was radioactive. They knew you couldn't get it by Congress. We now have a president who is a man of his word, who has the courage President Trump was taking money from the pharmaceutical industry too. I think they gave you $100 million. But he can't be bought, unlike most of the politicians in this country. And he is standing here for the American people. I don't know what, there's writers like Lord Elizabeth Warren or Robert Reich who are saying that President Trump is on the side of the oligarchs. There has never been a president more willing to stand up to the oligarchs than President Donald Trump. And I'm very, very proud of you, Mr. President, for your courage, I'll say, because I don't want to be crude, your intestinal fortitude, your stiff spine, and your willingness to stand up for the American people. We have 4.2% of the world population. Our country represents 75% of the revenues for pharmaceutical companies. We spend in our country $1,126 per capita on drugs. In Britain, they spend about $240. They spend 1/5 of what we do. And this is true across Europe. And the drug companies, Europeans, if you ask them, it made no sense what they were saying. Well, America has to pay for this innovation or it's not going to happen. President Trump is saying to our European partners, is you got to raise the amount that you're paying for those drugs and pay for your share of the innovation. That the United States is no longer subsidizing that. If the Europeans raise the price of their drugs by just 20%, that is $10 trillion that can be spent on innovation, and the health of all people all across the globe is going to increase because we're going to have better products. So I'm just so grateful to be here today. I never thought that this would happen in my lifetime. I have a couple of kids who are Democrats, are big Bernie Sanders fans, and when I told them that this was going to happen, they had tears in their eyes because they thought this is never going to happen in our lifetime, and we finally have a president who's willing to stand up for the American people. Thank you, and Dr. Oz.
Thanks, Secretary Kennedy. This is the most powerful executive order on pharmacy pricing and healthcare ever in the history of our nation. And it's only happening because we have a president with the fortitude, the guts to stand up to the withering criticism and lobbying that's going to occur as soon as folks hear about the executive order. So on behalf of the child in Philadelphia who's got an autoimmune disease with a $1,000 a month drug, or the older woman in Los Angeles who's on a blood thinner who can't afford her copay, I want to thank President Trump. God bless you for having the guts to take on this industry. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
So let's talk about the details a little bit. And this is primarily about equalization, as President Trump said. It's about fairness. Think of NATO as a metaphor. When President Trump said, you've got to pay a little more so it makes sense for all of us, they came up. And the European countries contributed. The same thing we believe will happen in this situation. Most people who have thought about this process agree that it is patently unfair to tolerate the numbers that Secretary Kennedy and President Trump have reflected to you. On this chart to my left is a list of the 10 drugs that were negotiated in the IRA. Again, this is the bill, the law, that regulates a negotiation process. This is the best price that was able to be obtained by the Biden administration. And if you look at these numbers, they actually reflect how much on top of the most favored nation price was being paid by the United States. So the closest to me, Bob, you can point to the chart, yes, the closest one, 289%, the one that's closest to you. That means that we are paying in America 4 times more than that drug costs in other countries. Again, 100% is the baseline. It's 289% above that baseline. It goes all the way down to where we're paying 50% more than any other country. That's the range. As was pointed out by President Trump, half the time we're paying 3 times more than is paid in other countries. It doesn't make any sense for the system. That stated, President Trump has over and over again indicated, and Secretary Kennedy reflected as well, we want innovation. We want our technology partners doing the best they can to make the best solutions for drugs that cure as many people in America and around the world as possible. By getting our allies to pay a bit more, as they should be, and they should have for many years been doing, will course correct a problem that's gotten out of hand. And by doing that in a thoughtful, effective way, we're going to be able to get the pharmaceutical industry whole. Those jobs will still be here, will still be productive, will still be curing cancer and a slew of other ailments that plague humanity. America will still be the leader in this space, but we'll be paying the appropriate amount, the right-sized amount for those tasks. So over the next 30 days, the four of us up here, together with people standing in the back of this room, we're doing a lot of the heavy lifting, are going to be approaching pharmaceutical companies to talk specifically about what we want the most favored nation price to be based on the best data we have. We're looking forward to a thoughtful interaction with these corporate leaders, many of whom we've spoken to and in quiet will agree the system is not right the way it is. They're patriotic Americans. They want what's right. But the fact that in my lifetime, as Secretary Kennedy said, for the first time, we have a thoughtful and aggressive approach, thanks to President Trump, on taking on these special interests, should give all Americans confidence that this is an administration that stands for fairness and should chill the waters for those who believe they can push us away from our North Star, which is to take care of the American people. Mr. President, God bless you. Jay, you want to go next? Good.
So I teach economics at Stanford as well as health policy. And one thing that's really, really simple in economics is that when you have a persistent price difference for the same product between two countries, there's something deeply wrong. And what President Trump has done is a historic measure that should have been done a long time ago. What we're going to do is make sure that those prices become much closer to equal, like a competitive market you'd expect. Right now what's happening is the American people are subsidizing in large fraction the research and development efforts for drug companies around the world by the higher prices that we pay. With this new order, Europe will share the burden of that. And in fact, if you may think of it as like as somehow it's going after drug companies, actually it's helping drug companies. Because what we're also going to do with this order, what President Trump has done with this order, is he's said to European governments, look, if you are taking advantage of the drug companies by forcing them to charge very, very low prices, we're going to defend American drug companies in Europe. At the same time, we're standing up for the American consumer who's been paying far too high prices for far too long. I can go back decades to point to congressional reports after government report after government report of tremendously high drug prices, much higher than the rest of the world, and nothing has been done about it until this moment. And I'm really, really proud, President Trump, that you've done this. I'm really proud to be included in this and looking forward to the work ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the many doctors I've talked to about this very issue, thank you for taking the bull by the horns. Presidents on both sides of the aisle have talked about this and floated it and said they wanted to do it, so you've had the courage to do it. Thank you. I've been a surgical oncologist at Johns Hopkins for 22 years, and I have seen patients suffer. We didn't take an oath to heal patients and then watch their life get ruined financially, with their home, mortgage, retirement, going down the drain with GoFundMe campaigns, raising money from church communities and synagogues and friends they haven't seen in 20 years to try to raise money for what? For a system where Americans have been getting ripped off by 10, 12, 15 times higher prices than we see in other countries. The fundamental problem in healthcare is that we've had non-competitive markets. We can do little things around the edges, or we can transform those markets to competitive markets, and that's what this executive order does today. Imagine buying a Ford for $175,000, a regular car, and then hearing that people in London are buying it for $10,000 every day, all day long. That is the craziness of this system. We're going to do everything we can at the FDA to support this executive order. It's transformative. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So thank you very much, everybody. I think it's a very important day. In many ways, we'll start with the Houthis. We go to Pakistan and India. We go to what we did with China, the trade deal, and with UK. And by the way, many other deals are coming in very much. At a certain point, we'll just set the price because we know where we are. but we'll just set the price. But world trade is going to be terrific, and our country is going to be making a lot of money. Taxes are going to go down. Taxes are going to go down very, very substantially. But you look at all of the things that we've done, and now today I'm heading over. We'll see what we're going to do with respect to Iran. I think you have very good things happening there, too, by the way. I think can't have a nuclear weapon, but I think that they are talking intelligently. We're in the midst of talking to them, and they're right now acting very intelligent. We want Iran to be wealthy and wonderful and happy and great, but they can't have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. So I think they understand that I mean business, and I think they're being very reasonable thus far. And don't underestimate Thursday in Turkey. President Erdogan is going to be a great host, and we are doing some work with him having to do with Syria, too, by the way. We're going to have to make a decision on the sanctions, which we may very well relieve. We may take them off of Syria because we want to give them a fresh start. But President Erdogan's asked me about that. Many people have asked me about that because the way we have them sanctioned, it doesn't really give them much of a start. So we want to see if we can help them out. So we'll make that determination. But I think you're going to have maybe a good meeting. You have the potential for a good meeting, that a meeting wasn't going to take place. I insisted that that meeting take place. And it is taking place. And I think you may have a good result out of the Thursday meeting in Turkey between Russia and Ukraine. And I believe the two leaders were going to be there. I was thinking about flying over. I don't know where I'm going to be on Thursday. I've got so many meetings. But I was thinking about actually flying over there. There's a possibility of it, I guess, if I think things can happen. But we got to get it done. We got to save 5,000 lives a week. 5,000 lives is really more than that. It's worse than that. And when you see and you don't want to see it, but when you see the satellite photographs of the battlefield with arms and legs and heads all over the place, separated by 30 yards from bodies, doesn't make sense. So we're working very hard to see if we can end that bloodbath. Okay, there shouldn't be too many questions. It's been covered pretty well.
Mr. President, thank you for taking questions. Two quick ones for you. Starting on trade. If a longer-term deal is not reached with China at the end of these 90 days, can the American people expect those tariffs to go back up to 145%?
No, but they would go up substantially higher. You know, at 145, you're really decoupling because nobody's going to buy. But they can go, they got very high because of additional tariffs I applied during the course because of fentanyl and other things. But no, but they go substantially higher.
And then on Qatar, Mr. President,
I think you will have a deal, however.
You're confident that there will be a deal. On Qatar, has Qatar asked for anything in exchange for that $400 million luxury jumbo jet? And how can the American people be so sure that they will not in the future?
Well, I think what happens with the plane is that, we're very disappointed that it's taking Boeing so long to build a new Air Force One. We have an Air Force One that's 40 years old. And if you take a look at that compared to the new plane of the equivalent, stature at the time, it's not even the same ballgame. You look at some of the Arab countries and the planes they have parked alongside of the United States of America plane, it's like from a different planet. And it's close to 40 years old, might be more than 40 years old now. And we, when I first came in, I signed an order to get it built. I took it over from the Obama administration. They had originally agreed. I got the price down much lower. And then when the election didn't exactly work out the way that it should have, a lot of work was not done on the plane because a lot of people didn't know. They made change orders that were so stupid, so ridiculous. And it ended up being a total mess, a real mess. And when I came back, I said, by the way, what's going on with the Boeings that are coming in? Well, sir, they're way behind. And they're way behind. They were way behind. Another mess that I inherited from Biden. And it's going to be a while before we get them. And I think Qatar, who we've helped them a lot over the years in terms of security and safety. I think they end very, very nicely. And I have a lot of respect for the leadership and for the leader, Qatar. And I think they knew about it because they buy Boeings. They buy a lot of Boeings. And they knew about it. And they said we would like to do something, and if we can get a 747 as a contribution to our Defense Department to use during a couple of years while they're building the other ones, I think that was a very nice gesture. Now, I could be a stupid person and say, oh, no, we don't want a free plane. We give free things out. We'll take one, too. And it helps us out because, again, we're talking about we have 40-year-old aircraft. The money we spend, the maintenance we spend on those planes to keep them tippy-top is astronomical. You wouldn't even believe it. So I think it's a great gesture from Qatar. I appreciate it very much. I would never be one to turn down that kind of an offer. I mean, I could be a stupid person and say, no, we don't want a free, very expensive airplane. But I thought it was a great gesture. And I think it was a gesture because of the fact that we have helped and continue to, we will continue to, all of those countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and others, we keep them safe. If it wasn't for us, they probably wouldn't exist right now. And I think this was just a gesture of good faith. And I don't get it. Someday it'll be like Ronald Reagan. They decommission them. You know, they get to a certain age, they decommission them. It'll go to my library. They're talking about going to my library in years out. But I thought it was a great gesture. And it's something that was done by Ronald Reagan. They actually decommissioned the plane and he put it in his library. And it actually has made the library, I think, a Boeing 707. It's actually made the library more successful. So it was good.
Do you plan to use the plane after you leave office?
No, I don't. No, it would go directly to the library after I leave office. I wouldn't be using it. No.
Mr. President, on the hostage, you said that the release of the American hostage, Aaron Alexander, is a step in good faith to end this war. Do you expect any progress, perhaps announcement on ceasefire during your trip to the Middle East?
We hope that we're going to have other hostages released too, as you know. So when I met with the hostages 3 weeks ago that were there for quite a while, you remember the 10 people that came in, mostly young people, 1 or 2 were a little bit older. They were explaining the trials and tribulations. I mean, they went through hell. And I said, how many are there? They said, 59. I said, that's a lot. I didn't realize, because we got a lot out. You know, we got a lot of hostages out, I think you will acknowledge. They said 59, but then they said, they followed that up by saying 59, of which 24 are living, the rest are dead. But the people whose son, mostly son, I think 1 daughter in this case, but mostly sons are there, or husbands are there, those people want the dead bodies as much as they want the live body. I have a mother that calls me, but came up to me when I first met her, and she said, sir, please get my son out. He's dead, but they have his body. And I asked her about that, and it's as though he were alive. The level of wanting that body back is the same. It couldn't be any more, as though he were alive. So, getting the bodies back is very important. That could be a thing having to do with the religion. It could be same. I was amazed at the level of importance. It's the same as if the son or husband or whatever was alive. So they said 59. In fact, they came in with a number 59 written out on like a sign on their chest. They came to thank me for getting them out. And I said, what does the 59 mean? They said, well, that means there are 59 people. But then they said, but 24 are living. Now it's 21. The number's 21. So now it's actually, we'll get Etan today. We think we're getting him today. So it's 20. So they have 20 live hostages there. The rest are dead bodies.
Mr. President,
are you open to negotiating your tariffs on cars, steel, and aluminum with China or any other country?
Well, we're not even talking about that. We're bringing the car business back into this country. We have commitments, and not only commitments, they've already started construction on many plants. They've left Mexico in a few cases. In a few cases, they've left Canada. They're not going to build in Canada. They're going to build here because we have the market, and the tariffs have been amazing. The election and the tariffs. November 5th was a big day, and on top of that, of course, you wouldn't have the tariffs without the election, I guess, if you look at it. But we have at least 11 committed massive car factories that are going to be built, that are in the process of being built. and some are going through. Some have actually started. We also have renovations of existing factories where they weren't utilizing the full factory from years gone by, and now they're under full renovation. They'll be opening up full factories in a very short period of time. Our car industry is, I think we're going to have the #1 industry. You know, if you look at Japan and these others, they do tremendously with cars, and they can do that too. But you know, if they want to sell cars in the United States, they're going to have to build factories in the United States, because I'm interested in cars for the United States. Now, one other thing is, in our tax bill, we're giving not only no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, but also we're going to get a deduction for people that borrow money to buy a car if it's made in America. If it's not, we have no interest.
A meeting between President Putin as well as President Zelensky. If President Putin doesn't show up to these talks in person in Turkey, will you join Europe in putting higher sanctions on Russia?
If I felt it would be important toward getting the deal done, I'm the one that insisted on the meeting. They couldn't get a meeting because one said ceasefire, one said no ceasefire. It was going back and forth. I said, look, at this point, we got to stop it. Just go to the meeting. The meeting's been set. Go to the meeting on Thursday. And if I thought it would be helpful, I don't know where I'm going to be at that particular point. I'll be someplace in the Middle East, but I would fly there if I thought it would be helpful. Yeah, please.
Refugees. I want to ask you about South African refugees. Dozens of Afrikaners who claim discrimination in their home country are heading to the United States, where your administration is going to welcome them as refugees. Now, this comes as you've halted virtually all refugee admissions for people fleeing famine and war from countries like Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Why are you creating an expedited path into the country for Afrikaners but not others?
Because they're being killed, and we don't want to see people be killed. Now, South Africa leadership is coming to see me, I understand, sometime next week. And, you know, we're supposed to have I guess a G20 meeting there or something, but we're having a G20 meeting. I don't know how we can go unless that situation's taken care of, but it's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about, but it's a terrible thing that's taking place, and farmers are being killed. They happen to be white, but whether they're white or black makes no difference to me, but white farmers are being brutally killed, and their land is being confiscated in South Africa, and the newspapers and the media, television media, doesn't even talk about it. If it were the other way around, they talk about it. That would be the only story they talk about. And I don't care who they are. I don't care about their race, their color. I don't care about their height, their weight. I don't care about anything. I just know that what's happening is terrible. I have people that live in South Africa. They say it's a terrible situation taking place. So we've essentially extended citizenship to those people and to escape from that violence and come here. Yeah.
Please. Mr. President, thank you. Are you letting China off the hook for these 90 days, and do you really believe that they will follow through with non-tariff barriers and remove those?
Non-monetary tariffs, yeah. Yeah, I think they're going to follow through. I think they want it very badly. I think they want the deal very badly. Again, this doesn't include the steel tariffs that I put on a long time ago that Biden tried to get off, but he couldn't get them off because it was too much money. You know, I took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China, what a lot of people don't know, but we put on the tariffs originally. And if I didn't do that, we wouldn't have a steel industry today. Now we have a thriving steel industry. It'll be thriving much more with what we're doing because this is the next level. But it doesn't include that, doesn't include cars, doesn't include pharmaceuticals when we do that. And the reason we're doing that will be to get them to come back in the country. You know, there are, again, I always say it because a lot of people forget, but if a company like Eli Lilly, which is making a massive investment in the United States right now. They're building many, many plants. They've already started like 7 of them, many plants, but they are not going to be tariffed. There's no tariff cost. So they're all doing that. They're all coming back to the United States. I mean, I'll tell you what, I hope I get the benefit of watching this because, as president, because, you know, it takes a little while to do this stuff. And we're doing it early in the administration. If you think of it, we have, I believe, if you look at the real total, it's over $10 trillion committed for plants and factories. Other administrations haven't had $1 trillion over a 4-year period, even over an 8-year period. We have over $10 trillion committed in one form or the other over 2 months. Give me a break. I'm here to hear 3, but let's give me a break on the first month. We want to get acclimated. But if you think about it, it's really 2 months. And so in 2 months, we have an investment already of over $10 trillion. And other presidents haven't had that done over a year, over 4 years in some cases. It's unprecedented. There's never been anything like it. It's a very exciting time in America. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Mr. President, are you ready to impose sanctions on Russia if Putin doesn't agree with the 30-day ceasefire?
I have a feeling they're going to agree. I do. I have a feeling.
And we see other countries, no European countries, Mr. President, in the negotiations.
The budget bill negotiations are taking place. Who in your administration is in charge of that while you're gone? Is it
Everybody. Bobby, from the standpoint of medical, this group behind me, I mean, I think it's the best group ever assembled. In terms of medical, I think you're going to see a tremendous cut. I don't think. I mean, I know you're going to see it in Medicaid and Medicare. That cut will be massive because drugs are 50-60% of the cost. So Medicaid costs are going down and Medicare costs are going down because of what we're doing today. And there's no, it's not like, oh, gee, well, maybe it won't happen. It's going to happen because the other countries have no choice. Now, the drug companies are going to have to say, listen, if you don't pay more, we're not going to give you the drug, and they're willing to do that. So that's it. They have to, we have to equalize.
Mr. President, price controls.
Say it?
How do you respond to the fact that this
It's not price control. No. Price control was before. If you want to talk about it. Price control is what they were doing. They were making us pay. They set a price. And they said, here's what we're going to pay. And anything else, George, America. Because at that time, they had a very stupid president. And it really went crazy during the last 4 years. And remember this, the Democrats are the ones that allowed this to happen. They were the ones that were the protector of this pricing system. And I think it's going to be very hard. You have to ask Democrats, are they going to vote against the one great, big, beautiful deal that's being negotiated now, tax cuts, etc. But now on top of the tax cuts, the regulation cuts, all the things, now you're going to say that the price of your medicine is going down by 60, 70, 80%. You're going to vote against it? I think a lot of Democrats are going to be forced to do something that their leaders are going to beg them not to do, and that's vote for the bill. I don't see how they can vote against it. How can they vote against it when drug prices, drugs and pharmaceuticals are going to be down 70, 80%? It's going to be very interesting.
Mr. President, what do you say to people who view that luxury jet as a personal gift to you? Why not leave it behind?
You're ABC fake news, right?
Why not?
It's only ABC. Well, a few of you would. Let me tell you, you should be embarrassed asking that question. They're giving us a free jet. I could say, no, don't give us, I want to pay you $1 billion or 400 million or whatever it is. Or I could say, thank you very much. You know, there was an old golfer named Sam Snead. Did you ever hear him? He won 82 tournaments. He was a great golfer. And he had a motto, when they give you a putt, you say, thank you very much. You pick up your ball and you walk to the next hole. A lot of people are stupid. They say, no, I insist on putting it. And then they putt it and they miss it. And their partner gets angry at them. You know what? Remember that, Sam Snead. When they give you a putt, you pick it up and you walk to the next hole and you say, thank you very much.
Respectfully, sir, as a businessman, some people may look at this and say, have you ever been given a gift worth millions of dollars and then not received anything?
It's not a gift to me, it's a gift to the Department of Defense. And you should know better, because you've been embarrassed enough, and so has your network. Your network is a disaster. ABC is a disaster. Here is the bill. Bobby, come on over here. Now you're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars. Thank you very much, everybody.
Mr. President, a quick question about Turkey.
Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like that is over there. Very interesting. A lot to unpack in that. I know there was stuff about the Israel-Hamas war. He mentioned Russia-Ukraine and a ceasefire. He mentioned, of course, the pharmaceutical prices, the tariffs. One thing that was really interesting about the tariffs is that he mentioned without a deal, like a permanent deal, with China, that there could potentially be an increase in the tariffs. I think that could slow some of the growth and such on SPY today. So we'll need to be we'll need to keep that in consideration as we go through the trades. Also, for tomorrow, we do have CPI information or CPI data coming out from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. I'm going to go ahead and check Yahoo Finance and see what the current news is right now. If we'll refresh here. Seems like we're having an issue with Yahoo Finance here. Go ahead and refresh this while we wait. We have elevated up another 5 points since market open on the Fear and Greed Index. Okay. Here we go. Dow soars 1,000 points. U.S. China pack spurs stocks. We did know about this. We had it pop up in the news bot while we were listening to that press conference and that announcement from Trump. Let's see. Futures are still up quite a bit. Actually, I'm sorry. This is the markets. Futures are also up about the same amount here. Gold is down, which is to be expected, as people will pull out of the safer and then put it into more riskier investments and such. All right, someone asked a question about coals, so let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at coals. This is where we're at on coals. We just had a swing high. Swing high is when we make a new high and they have a sharp downward movement. That's what this is right here. That's on the 15 minutes. Let's take a look at the day chart and kind of get an overall trend. That's always our first step. On the overall trend, we're kind of sideways right now. This is a bump up in the right direction. Take a look at the 4 hours, still quite sideways here as well. Taking a look here, we have interesting short level here. I'm actually going to pull this out here. We're very much trading within this range. Now, those of you who, let's see. Those of you who may not know, I did make a Kohl's, trade around this time somewhere. It did go up over 100% throughout the time. I did exit those trades. And now we are seeing kind of this up and down side. We're going sideways, but we're seeing these waves back and forth. We've seen Kohl's go up. I think today it's almost up 80% from our initial entry. We've also seen better entries around like $42 on the 7.5 call for June 20th, 2025. That's an earnings play. So I would say it's still probably valid. The problem with this trade is that Kohl's is being shorted by Goldman Sachs. And whenever an institution shorts a company, there's a lot of pressure downwards, either due to short selling or it's hard to buck an institution. As a retail trader, it's really hard to. You can't do it on your own. It takes a lot of coordination or a lot of sentiment behind a ticker. And so I really personally think that there's better tickers to trade. I liked Kohl's, but now that we see it shorting, we do have a good trend. But since it's being so heavily shorted, like, it's just really not worth it, in my opinion, to risk it trying to buck an institution. I mean, it's just not worth it. With this break above the 50 EMA, that is a bullish short to medium turn bullish signal. We can assume it'll continue going up. We're going to have some more heavy resistance at this 200 wherever it meets the trend line here. So probably what will happen is it'll probably ease out and kind of settle somewhere around here. And if we look, that's also a swing high level. So if we want to draw our prediction, it'd probably be somewhere right around here that these meet, because this is going to go sideways as it continues to trade sideways. So we'll kind of probably somewhere over here. That being said, in the event that it hits there again, we can probably anticipate another sharp sell-off. It did gap down from here. I don't know if this was related to an earnings call. 310. Don't think it was. I don't think it was, but that was probably the tariff deal, honestly, if we're looking at the dates. Not 100% sure, though. That would take a little bit additional research looking at the news on March 10th. So, where would the next entry be on this? I mean, we're trading about midway, 50 RSI. We're kind of like right in the middle of a trade. Is kind of where we're at. There really isn't an entry right now. Looking at a shorter time frame, a good entry potentially could have been back here. I think it was trading, those calls that we had mentioned were trading at like $40. They're now trading at 80, which would be 100% gain. But this is really more of an exit rather than an entry. So I don't know that there really is a strong entry right now. So probably would leave this one alone for now if you're not already in a trade. If you are in a trade, you could take profit here at the 7.87 or probably around 750 where we're at now. Call it good and go find something new to trade. Or if you're still hopeful now that the tariffs have been or are being renegotiated with China, you could potentially hold out for the earnings play, because I think their forecast is going to be reevaluated again since we now have a new outlook on those Chinese U.S. tariffs. So can't see the charts. Okay, appreciate that. Let me address that for you. Are you able to see them on the stream, or are you okay? Okay, no, we can't see them on anything. Let's get this updated for you then. All right, there's that. And then in the Discord as well, let's go ahead and grab that. Hopefully that is much better for you guys. All right. Anyways, as we were saying, just kind of review that on the higher time frame. Not looking great for an entry yet. Our entry would be above the break above the 50 EMA, which is right here. We did have the EMA break, but it's still not a confirmation. It was news that pushed it above it, so we kind of want to wait. Once again, not a good idea to try to buck an institution. This was our entry around 0.44. This is a better exit. If you did the initial entry, let's zoom out to the 4 hours again. We have a decent trend developing here, and along with that decent trend, we entered probably around here. You would have been up 100 times or 100% at least twice on this level. At least 80% if you had a slightly late entry, like back around here. I personally have taken profits. Our future supply zone is going to be where this 200 meets this trend line. We drew a box from this swing high, and it looks like it's going to meet at this level somewhere, probably in the future here. If you want to hold it for earnings, you're more than welcome to. Just know the risk that comes with trying to go long on something that an institution like Goldman Sachs is shorting. So I think because of the shorting that this play is kind of done. Alrighty. Anybody have any other tickers you want to go over? Any plays? I do have a couple I personally want to go over. Let me see. I've got a list somewhere. I think it's on my phone. Let's take a look at NVIDIA. And what I'm doing here is I'm actually mapping out and planning for my trades later this week. So this is something I recommend doing. First of all, I recommend everyone doing their own research and such. Don't take someone's advice on a trade unless you also believe, you believe in that trade yourself. Because if you don't have the conviction behind a trade when you place it, you're liable to either stop it short or, worry about it, or, make a bad decision because you're stressed and frustrated about something. So unless you have a strong conviction about a trade, just don't do it. It's just better that way. All right. Looking at this, we recently had a swing low. On this swing low, we're going to go back to the first candle. That's our demand zone. We bounce back into our demand zone. That would have been our entry as it breaks out. So right here would have been a good entry. Our target should have been probably this 200 EMA, or alternatively this level here, because this, let me see, this could be a distant level, but this is a more recent. I'll explain what I'm seeing here. So this is technically a swing high. It's a lower volume, but it is technically a swing high here. So this would be what's called a supply zone here. And so we bounce. As we fall, you would short. As it lands into this and makes this swing, you would cut your profit, which you would probably get out around here. At this point, you would draw your new demand zone, showing where the buyers are willing to buy back in. This is where the demand is for those buyers. As we bounce, we come back into our demand zone. If it's a strong demand zone and it shows support or a similar level at this place, it will bounce again. As it breaks out of that demand zone, you can go on a shorter time frame. You would enter here and you would go long for either your 200 EMA, which is your dynamic resistance on the days, or for that previous supply zone, which would be here. So honestly, this trade would have just finished. Here's what we would do next. We would wait, see if it bounces back down, or if it continues to push up through here, and then draw a new swing based on its new high. And basically what we're looking for is a strong volume, is a peak with strong volume. Let me zoom in right here. For instance, right here. Let's go to the days. I'm going to erase this so you guys can see this better. And let's take out the EMAs too, because honestly, you don't really need that for this. Okay. So here we have a strong point. The chart makes a very strong point. This is called a swing low, because we form a low and then we swing back up or swing away. And we identify these honestly just by looking at the chart and looking for areas of higher volume, which are these bars down here. So if this is elevated and you have a reversal, that's a stronger swing. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take the previous candle from that point, which this was the point. So this is the previous candle, the previous sell candle, and you're going to take this, either the 2, or you could do the 1, just depending on what you prefer. It doesn't really matter, honestly. And you're going to extend this out forward in time. And generally what the price will do, this is called a demand zone. Generally what the price will do is it will bounce from that on like a slight pullback. And then if that demand zone is valid, you'll see it fall right back into the demand zone. Once it enters the demand zone, you want it to look for an exit with volume. In this case, we exited, wasn't a ton of volume here, but then we see that in volume starts to increase and we push way out of that demand zone. And so you know that's a valid demand zone, and that's where you would enter. And this works for a swing low or a swing high. On a swing high, if we'll go back over here, we have a trend, a directional trend. We have a point and then a directional, a new direction. Another example would be here. And what we're looking for is a high and then a strong directional candle in the opposite direction. So this would be a decent one. This isn't a wonderful one, but if you look here, it has a lot more volume and a lot more strength. And then it continues. So this is a valid one. It would probably be better to do like maybe like the wicks, and maybe even do 2 candles on this one. So that would be your supply zone. And then of course you would look for it to return back to this. And so because this wasn't so strong, we probably didn't see it. This was probably the stronger one over here, which would be about this level. And of course we did see it return and then fall back through. So that was a valid one. But yeah, the stronger level it is and the more volume, the better a swing point it is. So like these, and it doesn't really matter which ones you choose, as long as you have strong volume confirmation. So here's another one that's a swing high. Once again, chart returns, and then it has a directional opposite direction move. Actually comes up from here, from this one, which this would be a swing low. And on this one, we have a strong jump here. So I'm going to actually take this candle here, since that is a little bit of a different gap down almost, if you'll notice. So anyways, that right there, strong directional return, boom, and bounce out of it. And all the market is, I know we've talked about this, but all the market is cycles. And this is kind of my swing trading strategy. I go out, look for high time frame setups, zoom into a slightly lower, so usually the 4 or the day is my trend setting. Zoom into the 15 for entries, 15 or 30, and then when I find an optimal entry, like right here, this is almost a short entry. I don't know how good of a short entry this is though, because we are oversold, but we did have a news catalyst, so probably wouldn't enter here, especially with the directional trend being up. But that's why we use multiple time frames and try to find a confluence between them to enter a trade. So in this case, what I would probably wait and see is, hey, how far down do we go, and does it set up for a longer directional uptrend trade, since we are in a directional uptrend on the day and the 4 hours. So let's look for other trades today. One of the ones I was going to look at for myself, let's see, Nvidia, Tesla. I want to take a look at a couple of things here. All right, give me one more moment here. I'm trying to find my watch list. Don't know where it is. Okay, here we go. Let me look for. I want to look for. Let's look at Sophie. All right. Looking on this, we do have a directional trend in an upward direction here. I am going to mark the level here on a, let's do it on the day. Actually, I'm going to do it on this right here. This is fine. Okay. So it looks like this may have been our entry here if we were going to go long. Unfortunately, it looks like we're past that. Don't know how strong of an entry that would have been. Let's take a look at a different strategy here. Instead of the EMAs, I'm actually going to put in a Bollinger Bands, because I think this fits this better. Okay. How many of you guys know about Bollinger Bands? Basically, Bollinger Bands are two bands that follow a median price. Usually this is either the 20 or the 50 moving average. In this case, it's the 20. You can see that here. And then the width is 2, and what this means is it's 2 standard deviations on either side of that moving average. And it opens and closes based on the volatility. And so what you're looking for when using this indicator is you're looking for a bounce off the bottom to a bounce off the top. And so generally you want to find a strong bounce with volume. At this point, this looks like a good solid entry point. This is a strong bounce or a swing low, a bounce off the bottom. And then you want to wait. And then your exit would be somewhere around here, which is a strong bounce off the top. You could potentially take your profit there. That would be acceptable. I mean, that's a really nice trade. If you wanted a stronger one with more volume, that would be your trade right here. And you would exit at this level. This is actually just finished. This trade is over. We really can't get in on it now. A little unfortunate, but I do think it's a perfect example of how to use your Bollinger Bands. Generally, when you hit the bottom bands and you have a oversold level under 30, that's a good entry. So you're going to wait for the volume. You want to be in a red MACD. I'm sorry, I highlighted the TTM squeeze. I'm actually going to take this off and the slow stochastic too. So basically, this is probably a chart that you're more familiar with, but you're going to see a 30 RSI or this little fill area and a strong bounce underneath with a red sell-off cycle. Once you have that, you know that you have a decent setup as it bounces with volume, which would be right here on this candle. You would want to enter long, ride it out until you break through the band again on the top, and then you would just reverse that. Are we at an oversold level? Not really. That would be maybe a better exit. We're still in the green, but we're nearing that overbought. And then for sure here, we're overbought. We're outside of that level. We're still in the green. That's the perfect time to sell. And then as you can see, we just collapse after that. Here we are bouncing again. This time we're in a green level. We would not enter here if we go above the 70 and we stay outside of the Bollinger Band areas. That might be a potential short exit. I'm sorry, a short entry rather than an exit. And you could kind of ride it similar to how we did over here. I mean, I say we did. I actually didn't take this trade, but let's see. Let's see if we can find a better one. Okay, yeah, here we are. Overbought. We exit the Bollinger Bands. Overbought, we're in a green. Enter short. We ride it, and then we just completely collapse and break down until we hit, really that would be the optimal exit point right here. In a red cycle, oversold. Now with that, we would have to hold through this spike, so you could potentially take out an earlier exit. One way to take profit and be safe with these is to wait until you cross that middle band. Once you cross that middle band, you can take, say, you can do a two contract order. And as you cross that band, that middle band, you take profit on one, and then as you cross the lowest band, you can take profit on the other. So that's how to use your Bollinger Bands and your MACDs and look for high probability strong setups. And let's see, we've talked about 3 different strategies here. I know I haven't really highlighted the 3 different ones. The first one, I'll just go back through and just clarify because I think I could have been more clear. Let me see, close that. First one is the swings. That's calculated by levels of demand and supply. So these different zones like this. Second one is the Bollinger Bands, which is this one we just went over. And then the first one we went over earlier today was the squeeze, was monitoring for squeeze. So high level time frames, look for areas that indicate a squeeze. For instance, right here, this level. All right, this is a squeeze level. It's indicated in purple. When we find that, we can zoom in closer. Where did we go? I think we lost it. Let's try to get... Okay. I'm losing it here. Okay. When we find our squeeze area, we're going to mark a trend. Let's see right here. Okay, this right here, boom. This is the level right here, I'm pretty sure. Okay. Hey, excuse me, give me 1 second. Hey. My dog grabbed my headphone cord. All right, let's try this again. All right, so we've got this level somewhere right here. There we go. There's our squeeze setup. This one's more of a support. We're gonna turn on EMAs. And we're gonna look for the intersection of an EMA and a channel line. And let me show you. When we find the intersection of an EMA and a channel line on a squeeze, right here or right here, that's our entry, and we entered long. In this case, we would have entered either right here where it intersected or right here where it intersected with all three. If we did that, we have an explosive move upwards. We can exit at the 200 EMA and have a safe trade. We could exit at this swing high and have a better trade, but still safe. Or we can try to ride it out until we indicate oversold levels, which if you look, that 200 is probably the optimal since that's where we first indicate oversold. So that or this previous one, either one would be a decent exit. If we're going to be safe, probably do the 200 if you're underneath it. It's just a much safer and more high probability trade. But yeah, that's our 3 strategies that we went over today. It's almost 10:30. Generally, that's when we end the streams. If you're new here, we do a 8 a.m. to 10:30 stream. Sometimes it's an 8:30. That's varies based on different factors and such like that. But we're usually pretty active with the communication, especially if there's going to be a delay or anything like that. If you guys have questions, jump into the Discord, ask your questions. We'd love to help you out and love to help you learn more. Thank you once again. This has been Free the Trade, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. And we'll see you next time.